Okay, so let's try and unpack this. From intense missile strikes shaking Ukraine to, well, truly unexpected diplomatic overtures happening in Belarus, and then shifting gears over to new power plays in the Pacific. It really does feel like the world is, shifting beneath our feet. Today, we're taking your latest sources, and we're going to try and cut through all that noise, deliver the essential insights, maybe reveal some surprising connections, and what these complex global developments might mean for you.
Yeah, it's a great mission. Because what's truly fascinating right now is how these things, they seem separate, but they aren't isolated at all. They're all like threads in this really complex, interconnected web, alliances, escalations, surprising diplomatic moves too. It's all reshaping international relations as we speak. It's a very dynamic time.
Absolutely. So let's dive straight in. The immediate, impactful news from Eastern Europe. We're starting with the reports of intense activity from September 15th, a fresh wave of Russian attacks across Ukraine. And these weren't minor skirmishes, right? Authorities reported at least 5 people killed, 43 injured across various regions. So pretty broad.
A broad and impactful offensive, yeah.
The Ukrainian Air Force confirmed Russia launched 84 of those shared-type drones. People often identify those as the Iranian-designed Shahed drones, known for being low-cost swarming tactics.
That's the ones, yeah. And alongside those, 3 S-300 missiles. Now, Ukrainian air defenses, they did intercept 59 drones, which is, quite a few. But 22 of them and all 3 missiles still got through, hit 13 different locations.
13 locations, human impact.
Significant, yeah. In Donetsk, Governor Vadim Volashkin reported 2 dead, 20 wounded, and just in Kramatorsk alone, 6 people injured by an aerial bomb. Then you had 12 injured from a missile attack in Sumy. Over in Zaporizhzhia, Governor Ivan Fedorov confirmed 2 deaths. And get this, Russia apparently carried out a staggering 607 attacks against 17 villages in that one region.
607 in one area.
That's the report, yeah. Just constant pressure. And down in Kherson, 1 person killed, 2 injured. So these aren't just statistics, are they? They really highlight Russia's sustained pressure. And Ukraine's ongoing challenge, protecting civilians, infrastructure, even with their air defenses, working hard.
It's a devastating toll on the ground, absolutely. But, like in any conflict, there are always different narratives, diverging stories. What's the Russian perspective? What are they saying about these recent engagements? Are they claiming different successes?
They are indeed. The Russian East Battle Group spokesperson, Alexei Kovylev, he claimed their troops destroyed 11 enemy drone control posts just in the last day. And he also asserted they're advancing deeply into enemy defenses. That's the quote.
Okay, so claiming advances and hitting command posts.
Right. And beyond that, Kovylev detailed the destruction of 3 RVI-type armored combat vehicles and 14 other Ukrainian motorized vehicles. So it reflects their perspective on the operations, highlights their claimed tactical gains.
Okay, that gives us a picture of the direct conflict. But, for all the headlines focused on the front lines, sometimes the really intriguing stuff unfolds in, well, unexpected diplomatic arenas. And right now, we're seeing a genuinely surprising development in Belarus, a close Russian ally. What are you making of this?
This is absolutely fascinating. It's the U.S. presence, that's the thing. So September 15th and 16th, military officials from the United States were seen observing these military exercises. The APASDA 2025 war games, conducted by Russia and Belarus.
Right.
And here's the twist. Belarus Defense Minister Viktor Krynin explicitly invited the U.S. officials, told them they could, quote, look at whatever is of interest to them.
They invited them. Wow.
Yeah. And the Belarusian Defense Ministry itself seemed, well, surprised. They released a statement saying, who would have thought how the morning of another day of a PAS 2025 exercises would begin?
Huh. So an invitation, not like they just showed up unannounced. And the U.S. wasn't alone either. You said representatives from 23 other countries, including NATO members, Turkey, and Hungary.
That's right, all present.
And there's even video footage showing American officials thanking Minister Krynin.
Yep. 2 uniformed American officials. It's out there.
This feels like a significant shift, doesn't it? Especially given Belarus's role, letting Russia use its territory for the invasion of Ukraine.
It is a really significant shift. This visit, it's the latest sign of a potential, rapprochement between Washington and Minsk. Minsk, which, as you said, allowed its territory to be used for the Russian incursion. If we zoom out a bit, the broader implications here are pretty profound. It suggests maybe a crack in Russia's closest alliance, forces Moscow to possibly reevaluate its western flank, could even alter the calculus for future peace talks, It's an interesting chess move.
And there's some recent diplomatic backstory here, too, that makes it even more intriguing. Just last week, John Cawley, who's a representative of former President Trump, he met with President Lukashenko in Minsk.
Right, that meeting happened. And reportedly, it led to an agreement. Lukashenko apparently agreed to release 52 prisoners, including journalists, political opponents.
Okay, so a prisoner released from Lukashenko. What was the in return?
Well, in return, our sources indicate the United States reportedly eased sanctions against Belavia, that's Belarus's national airline. And Trump's alleged desire, according to this representative Cawley, is to reopen the U.S. embassy in Belarus, normalize relations, reactivate trade.
Right.
It's a very pragmatic approach, maybe controversial for some, but definitely pragmatic diplomacy.
It's definitely bold.
Yeah.
And yeah, controversial for many, I'd imagine. So, the presence of the U.S., Turkey, Hungary, at Belarusian exercises, what message do you think that actually sends? To Moscow, maybe?
Yeah.
And to other Western allies, too?
It's a layered message, isn't it? It's certainly nuanced. On one hand, it signals maybe a willingness for dialogue, even with nations really deeply entwined with adversaries. Could be seen as trying to peel Belarus away from Russia, or at least open some channels. But it also sends a complex signal to NATO allies, potentially highlights, internal divisions, or maybe new strategic priorities within the alliance, especially having Turkey and Hungary there, both NATO members. It implies that engagement, even with, let's say, former pariah states, might be back on the table for some players.
That's a really fascinating insight, the complexities of just alliance dynamics. Okay, so while we're tracking these complex diplomatic moves, another, let's say, bold move is emerging on the political stage. Former President Trump's surprising offer to mediate the Russia-Ukraine conflict himself.
Yeah, our sources, specifically the Russian news agency Talasses, they reported on this. Trump allegedly said the hatred between Zelensky and Putin is unfathomable, his words, and that he, Trump, would have to do all the mediation work. He apparently criticized both leaders for their unwillingness to engage in dialogue. It certainly injects a new, maybe unpredictable element into the whole diplomatic picture.
Unpredictable is probably the word. Okay, meanwhile, back in Europe, tensions are running incredibly high in the diplomatic corps, especially after these recent drone incidents that have really pushed boundaries.
Yeah, and the immediate question is what exactly triggered this latest diplomatic firestorm? Well, the UK summoned the Russian ambassador in London. That was September 16th.
Okay.
And that followed Poland shooting down a Russian drone just days earlier. And then Romania sending up fighter jets after another Russian drone violated its airspace. These aren't minor things, right? These are serious incursions into sovereign airspace. It highlights a dangerous potential for escalation.
Absolutely. And the UK's response sounded quite firm. A British Foreign Office spokesperson called the incursions totally unacceptable. Said the UK stands with NATO allies, referencing that collective defense alliance in condemning Russia's reckless actions. And they issued a clear warning. Russia must understand that its continued aggression only strengthens unity among NATO allies. Any further incursions will again be met with force. That's strong language.
It is very strong. And it makes you wonder, how did Russia react to these warnings? Well, our old acquaintance, Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, he had some exceptionally strong words in response, as he often does.
He rarely minces words, does he? What did he say this time?
Well, commenting on a suggestion from the Polish foreign minister about a no-fly zone over Ukraine, Medvedev said, and this is pre-provocative, implementing the provocative idea of Kiev and other idiots to create a no-fly zone over Ukraine and allowing NATO countries to shoot down our drones would only mean one thing: NATO's war against Russia.
Wow. Calling it NATO's war against Russia, that's drawing a very clear red line.
Extremely clear. And he didn't stop there. He also publicly mocked the Estonian defense minister's visit to Kiev, stating, "The smaller the country, the more aggressive and foolish its leaders tend to be."
Oof. Okay.
So while Medvedev's rhetoric is undeniably aggressive, you have to ask, right, how much of this is genuine policy signaling versus perhaps a tactic, maybe to bolster domestic support or send a specific message?
That's always the crucial question with him, isn't it? It often feels like a bit of both, like testing red lines externally while also playing to nationalist sentiments at home.
Precisely. His statements often seem to serve multiple purposes. External deterrence, absolutely, but also internal messaging, especially for Russia's hardline circles. It reinforces that narrative of an existential struggle against the West.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears now. Let's take a deep dive across the Mediterranean. Pivot to the Middle East, where the situation in Gaza, well, it seems to be spiraling. Intensified attacks and a high-stakes U.S. diplomatic visit happening.
Yeah, in Gaza, the reports from local health authorities are grim. Israel apparently destroyed several buildings in Gaza City, killed at least 16 Palestinians. Airstrikes hit 2 family homes, and even, tragically, a tent housing a displaced family. The human cost just keeps mounting.
Witnesses are reporting aerial and ground attacks intensifying, forcing thousands more people to flee makeshift camps.
That's the situation on the ground, yes. Israel states its offensive in Gaza City is part of its plan to defeat Hamas, and they say civilians were warned to move south.
Right.
But the United Nations and several countries are framing this very differently. They're calling it forced mass displacement and highlighting the terrible conditions even in the designated humanitarian zone. This divergence in how it's described, it's critical, shows a really deep split in how these actions are perceived globally.
And amidst all of this, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Jerusalem. He met with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Netanyahu apparently took Rubio and the U.S. Ambassador, Mike Huckabee, on a tour of the Western Wall, a very holy site for Judaism.
And as you'd probably expect, this visit generated a really strong reaction from Hamas. They called it an attack on the sanctity of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which of course Muslims call the Al-Barak Wall, the same wall. And they reaffirm what they term the full partnership of the current United States administration in the crimes of the occupation. It really underscores the high stakes of such a visit.
And the U.S. response.
A U.S. State Department spokesperson affirmed Rubio was proud to visit and said that the visit reaffirms America's recognition of Jerusalem as the eternal capital of Israel. A very clear statement of policy.
Sure.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this explicit alliance, the U.S. stance, it's causing significant concern, particularly from Turkey. Turkish Chancellor Hakan Fidan, he gave an interview to the Russian agency TASS, interestingly, and he stated that this special relationship between the United States and Israel actually weakens the role of the United States itself in the Middle East.
Weakens the U.S. role.
How so? Well, Fidan argued that Washington seems to prioritize Israel over other regional partners like Turkey itself or the Gulf countries, and he believes this creates distrust, undermines broader regional stability. He added that the Turkish government continually reminds the U.S. that, quote, Israel's crimes against humanity have a global impact, and that the U.S.-led international system is on the brink of crisis.
That is a blunt critique of U.S. foreign policy in a really crucial region.
It absolutely is, and it just highlights again how deeply intertwined these regional power dynamics are with broader international relations, especially when a global superpowers alliances are perceived by key players as being, well, unbalanced.
Okay, from the complexities of the Middle East, let's now head east to the Asia-Pacific. China is flexing its military diplomacy muscles, and the U.S. is introducing new defense systems. It signals a pretty significant shift, doesn't it, in regional power dynamics, impacting global trade, stability.
Definitely. China is currently hosting the Xingshan Security Forum. That's a key event for their military diplomacy, showcasing its rising power. Over 1,800 delegates are attending, including defense ministers from Singapore and Malaysia, shows China's growing regional influence.
And this forum, it takes place just weeks after that major military parade, right? Where China unveiled new hypersonic weapons.
Exactly, sending a clear message about its military modernization. Now, Western countries, they're largely sending only low-level representatives. The U.S., for instance, just represented by its defense attaché. But other significant delegations are there. Russia, France, Brazil, Nigeria, Singapore, Vietnam. It's quite a mix.
A mix indeed.
And this forum is unfolding amidst really heightened regional tension. We've seen China testing aircraft carriers recently, Japan conducting exercises with the U.S. in Okinawa, Taiwan significantly increasing its military spending. It's a very clear signal of an accelerating arms race, increased competition in the region, no doubt about it.
And speaking of U.S. influence, during that Resolute Dragon military exercise in Japan, the U.S. showcased its Typhoon missile system for the very first time.
Ah, yes, the Typhoon. It's a highly mobile system, truck-mounted, capable of launching both Tomahawk cruise missiles and the SM-6 multi-role missiles. U.S. officials presented it as a weapon that, quote, creates dilemmas for adversaries. And Colonel Travis Posey noted it'll be regularly repositioned, moved around to avoid detection. That mobility is key.
Creates dilemmas. Okay. And this system, it was temporarily deployed in the Philippines back in April, wasn't it?
That's right.
So its appearance now in Japan, analysts are seeing that as part of the U.S. first island chain strategy. Could you maybe quickly explain what that strategy entails for, listeners who might not be familiar?
Sure, yeah. The first island chain, it's a key geopolitical concept, really. It's essentially a line of allied territories and strategic positions, stretching from Japan down through Taiwan, the Philippines. And the U.S. aims to utilize this chain to, well, contain China's naval power and project its own influence in the Western Pacific. So deploying systems like Typhon directly supports that goal, creates a defensive and maybe offensive posture right along that chain.
Right, that provides crucial context. Thank you. And this isn't just a U.S. move in isolation, is it? Tokyo plans to buy its own Tomahawk missiles, develop its own medium-range missiles. Taiwan, as you mentioned, planning to triple its defense budget by 2026.
Huge increase. And Beijing, naturally, has criticized all these maneuvers and
Yeah,
continues its own massive military modernization.
of course.
And, the deployment of the Typhoon to Japan, it also signals something else. It signals that the U.S. and its allies are willing to test the limits once imposed by that old 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, the
Wow.
INF Treaty,
The INF Treaty.
which the U.S. abandoned a few years back. Exactly. That treaty banned ground-launched missiles with ranges between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. These current moves, like deploying Typhoon, clearly push beyond those historical restrictions. It marks a new era, in a way.
So wrapping this all up, what does it all mean? From missile strikes, diplomatic overtures challenging old alliances,
Yeah.
escalating rhetoric, new military hardware in critical regions, we've seen a snapshot, haven't we,
Yeah.
of a world just in constant motion. Every action seems to have a ripple effect across continents, impacting security, trade, even the fundamental rules of how countries engage with each other.
It really does. And this raises, I think, an important question for all of us to ponder. As these geopolitical plates keep shifting and nations keep testing these established boundaries, how will the delicate balance of power ultimately be redefined? And maybe more importantly, what unforeseen consequences might arise from these bold new strategies for global stability, for our economies, for the societies we all depend on?
Exactly. It makes you realize just how interconnected everything truly is. Keep digging, keep questioning, folks, and keep exploring these incredible interwoven stories with us.